If you've been watching my channels for a while, you probably remember when I invested in a company called Stand Up Displays and the entrepreneur behind it, Dan Patell. Stand Up Displays makes really nice card stands that you can put your graded cards or raw cards on that can go on your desktop or bookshelf and show off your cards. Well, it's been a few years since I've made this investment, and Stand Up Displays has made a lot of big moves throughout that time period. A lot of great things have happened, some bumps on the road as well. I thought it would be fun to check in with Dan, find out what Stand Up Displays has been up to, but more importantly, what he has learned along the way about launching an entrepreneurial venture in the sports card hobby. So let's get started. Hello, and here we go. And Dan, welcome back to the Geoff Wilson Show.
Thank you for having me, Geoff. It's always a pleasure.
It is always a pleasure having you on. You and I get to talk often. You know, we talk routinely. I'm still obviously own a good portion of Stand Up Displays. We're still partners in the business together. So you and I have routine strategy calls and check-in calls and all that type of thing to talk about the business. But it's been a while since you've been on the show and have talked to the audience and have, you know, kind of talked about your journey. And
right.
a lot's changed, you know. Some really great things, some challenges as well, as always inevitably comes up with any business. But I thought this would be a cool opportunity to kind of bring everybody up to speed. So first and foremost, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. This is a journey that I never would have thought I would have embarked on. You know, coming from a family that had a strong corporate background, the thought of going and doing my own thing was always very intimidating. But it's something that I'm so glad I've done because it has just given me a new appreciation for hard work, connecting with people, and just doing what I love on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I you know, from past conversations, you've said that you don't necessarily think of yourself as maybe a traditional entrepreneur, right? You have worked corporate jobs and that type of thing, and so getting into entrepreneurship, taking the leap, was in some ways, it was new for you. Maybe
right.
In some ways, maybe a little bit uncomfortable for you.
Right.
But I've certainly seen you progress from the experience. What are some of the things you've taken away from having done that?
Yeah, first and foremost, we're here because we have a business relationship. Relationships are so key. And it's vitally important that you not only have a strong personal relationship with your family and friends that support you, but also people like yourself that can advise you on where to go. I would not have been able to do this without bringing someone like you on board. So that's built in. Not everybody has that. So seek advice and understand that you're going to need help along the way as well. You need to be very cognizant of what it is that you need to learn and grow, but also what you need to go have somebody else do for you, whether it's hiring somebody or paying for a service, because it's just not going to be worth it for you to figure out taxes when you should be hiring a tax person.
That is a hard thing for new entrepreneurs to do. It's a hard thing at times for seasoned entrepreneurs to do. Like I'm a very hands-on entrepreneur, so I have trouble delegating and giving things up.
Oh, it's hard, very hard.
But you have to in order to scale and be successful, right? It's a trait that you have to learn. And it's interesting, like in the early stages of an entrepreneurial venture, you have to be very hawkish and you have to be hands-on with everything. Once the venture hits a certain scale, you have to start acting in a completely different manner. The things that got you off the ground and to your first, you know, set of customers and your first set of employees, those same behaviors are going to work against you as the business scales. The hands-on, I'm going to own all of this, I'm going to have my hands in all of this approach is needed in the early steps, and then it becomes a hindrance as you grow, you know, on with the business. And so learning those nuances are always it's a challenge for any new entrepreneur to learn the balance.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the whole idea is to scale this and find the things within the business that you can cut the fat out or make it more lean. So we're doing that from a production perspective where different things like assemblies are happening at different stages that ease the supply chain, our supply chain, and our effort down the road. Now, obviously, what I started talking about was the administrative side of things, but the same is true of our operations. So we're going through an evolution right now that's going to enable us to make the right investments of time and money to help us grow, but also alleviate, and make us free to do more with our time.
So let's set the stage for everybody a little bit, maybe people who aren't as familiar with stand-up displays. So tell everybody a little bit more about like what the company does, kind of top products you sell, and also give people kind of a sense of volume, because it's a grown to be a relatively high volume operation at this point.
Right. So we started simply by 3D printing card stands that allowed you to display graded or raw cards. We started there, and it's since gotten into a more custom business where we're applying logos for teams with our MLB stands, or for companies like Breakers or Fanatics or eBay, some of our bigger customers. What started as my basement is now in a facility. And when you talk about volume, we're shipping on average between 30 to 50 packages a day. So we have a very close relationship with our UPS man that comes every day. And that opens the door for finding a lot of efficiencies. How do we get better? So when it's just, hey, we got an order on Etsy, I got to make that and ship it, is now stocking parts and assembling parts and being prepared for when, this video gets out there. Hopefully we'll get some more notifications out there and we'll be able to sell more product. But it's been a very operational maturing that's needed to happen to get to where we are. Otherwise we'd be dead in the water.
And as we go here through the video, anyone who wants to check out Dan's products, they're available at standupdisplays.co. So if you go to standupdisplays.co, you'll see all these products Dan's referencing. So 30 to 50 packages a day on average currently shipping, and orders of all different sizes. Some of those packages going out may just be as simple as a 10-pack of PSA card stands that are just the basic stands, right? And some of them may be as significant as hundreds or thousands of custom card stands going out to a big client. You mentioned, for example, eBay. I know at previous nationals, eBay would have hundreds or thousands of your cards on display. They were using them for giveaways, all with the eBay logo on them. Really nice card stands, and there's a lot of other companies that have done similar things. PWCC's had incredible displays that all have all have cards on your card stands. In fact, some of the greatest cards in the world have been put on stand-up displays.
2 of the 3 PSA 10 Mickey Mantles the 52 mantle have been on stand-up displays.
That's incredible.
I was hoping that Golden was going to release the 3rd as his little teaser, but it was a 1-of-1 Jordan. No big deal. But to that point, we have something for everybody. We want to appeal to somebody like me that's a collector at heart, and I like to enjoy the cards. Some of them have to go in a Zion case. Some of them have to go in your safe. I totally understand that. But I've got memories in these cards that I want to see. So from the basic stands where it's purely utilitarian, hey, I'm going to check that card out, to, like you said, industry-specific swag item where if I'm a bigger company, rather than give them something like a keychain, I can give them a stand that they will put their favorite card in and be reminded of that brand affiliation. So we've really covered the gamut, but we're collectors at heart. That's where this started, and we're trying to cater to everybody in the hobby.
And I think it's an interesting story that you started by 3D printing card stands in your basement with an inexpensive 3D printer that you bought. That was the original iteration of the company. It scaled to the point where, didn't you have like 10 or so of these 3D printers going simultaneously at one point?
I was up to, I think it was 18 at one point.
Oh my gosh. So the scale plan was more and more 3D printers. But then at some point along the way, you began to realize, we can't just keep adding 3D printers forever. That's not efficient. That's not cost effective. We've got to actually turn to real manufacturing.
Correct. And 3D printing is a great way to go from an idea to like something tangible in an hour. So you can really quickly, rapidly prototype. But yeah, my utility company had to do a wellness check when we switched from 3D printing, which actually doubled my utility bill, to injection molding, which obviously helped us scale. But the time goes from an hour and a half to 2 hours or 3 hours to manufacture something, the more complex designs, down to 2 to 3 minutes in our current state. So if you're going to scale, you need to be looking for those avenues that you can cut time and effort while still delivering a really high quality product.
Yeah, and it's great that you could get started the way that you did. And with any entrepreneurial journey, the early stages are always filled with, how can I do this fastest and how can I do this cheapest?
Right.
That's what you need to do in the early stages of a journey. I mean, in the journey of Sports Card Investor and Market Movers, when I first built Market Movers, like the software, we built the software lean. Like we used an MVP style approach, a
Right.
minimum viable product style approach for the software. And the first version of Market Movers was very limited. It could give you price history on less than 1,000 cards.
Right.
And it didn't even have collection tracking. It just simply was basically kind of price charting
Right.
for like 1,000 different cards. And today, Market Movers tracks over 3 million cards.
Right.
Versus 1,000, less than 1,000 that we started with. Plus, it's got collection tracking and about 50 other features which didn't exist day one.
Right.
But our focus in the beginning was, how do we do this fast? How do we do this cheap? How do we get something out into market? Right. And how do we prove it's a viable business and prove market need? Yeah. And it's smart to do it that way, because if you had started from the very beginning with full-on manufacturing, you would have committed tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars into molds and into production runs, and you would have gotten all of these parts, and you wouldn't have yet even proved that there's a market desire for this.
Right.
You wouldn't have proved that there's an audience that you can tap into who will buy your products. So you said, instead, how do I do this cheap and how do I do this fast, just to prove that I can do it? And you did that through 3D printing, and you could scale through 3D printing to a certain point. And for you, that point was 18 different 3D printers. And then at some point you're like, okay, this is taking over my entire house.
It is.
This is getting a little insane. It's now time to do it the more sophisticated way, which is to turn to actual manufacturing, place large orders, get molds, built. And that's required tens of thousands of dollars of investment.
Right.
Part of the reason why, obviously, I invested in the company, and part of what some of my money went towards.
Yep.
But it was a necessary step. And at that point, we could be confident in that step because you'd proven out the business case by doing it the cheap, fast, easy way.
Right. And it's also something that we wound up patenting, which is one of my biggest proud moments, is that not only did we create something that people want, but it's something that we felt the need to patent. And now we own that patent. But it's iterative design. You can't do that with the very cost-intensive molding process. 3D printing allows you to iteratively design while giving customers a chance to use the product and give feedback all along the way. And there's not a version 1, 2, or 3. It's like 100 versions where you're constantly tweaking to where you get something that people want, and then you lock it in, you mass produce it, and then you continue to scale.
This is classic lean startup.
Yeah.
So anyone out there who's read the book Lean Startup, I'm a big proponent of the book. It talks about how successful startups take a very iterative process. They build minimum viable products.
Yep.
And the book talks a lot about doing that in the world of software, but you did that in the world of a physical product.
Right.
By taking the same type of approach, but using 3D printing as the basis for it, and iterating and getting customer feedback and iterating, and then finally getting to the point where you're like, okay, we've perfected the product. We've proven the audience demands. Now we've got the blueprint. You got the patent on it to protect the IP, and then you're able to get manufacturing involved and really scale.
That's right. And my advice would be, figure the product. If there is a demand and you're designing to the demand, that's easy. We kind of created demand because it was a new area. So we found the demand and went after it. But find that demand and then worry about margin later. You're going to have to figure out where you need to be, but then once you lock it in, you're able to whittle away at that and find margin later through different channels. But you're not going to be a lean, mean manufacturing machine right out of the gate. It takes a lot of path of least resistance finding.
Even our manufacturing relationships have evolved over time too. Like we're right now just in the process of about to place a very, very large order to get a whole bunch of additional parts and pieces to be able to really continue to scale.
That's right.
The manufacturer who we're using for that's different than manufacturers that have done previous work for us before. Finding a manufacturer is its own, segment of things you got to figure out. And do you go US or do you go overseas? Do you go to China? There's a lot to figure out there. And that's kind of another part of the evolution is figuring out who to manufacture with and what to manufacture versus continue to produce in-house, et cetera. Then you got, distribution. Currently we're doing all of our distribution in-house, but, we're looking at, is that more efficiently to do through a partner? How do we scale distribution and fulfillment? And, there's a lot of nuances to it, but like any business, it's an evolving thing. It's like growing. Honestly, it's like having a kid. Like starting a business in many ways is like having a kid. You got to learn how to crawl before you can walk, and you got to learn how to walk before you can run, and you got to nurture. You got to know. The kid over time is going to get a lot more mature.
Right.
In the early stages, not so mature, but you need to be able to help affect and guide the journey of your child to help mature them in the right way, so that they blossom into like a well-adjusted, fully functional adult that's contributing to society.
Yeah.
And in many ways, that's the exact same thing with a business.
Right. Stand-up displays is my fourth kid that's currently learning how to ride a bike, I guess is how I would put it. And it's going to take a while.
And by the way, businesses are every bit as needy, if not more needy than children. They're every bit as expensive, if not more expensive than having kids. Yep. They demand every bit as much of your time, if not more time, than children do.
Yes.
So it truly is like having another child, when you start a business of any type.
100%. For those of you watching, I've got 3 boys, so it's chaos and destruction, and then a business on the side. It's busy, but it's awesome.
It is awesome indeed. You've had some big moments over the last couple of years. Tell me about a couple of your favorite moments.
Just some really great peaks in this, and you have to celebrate those. You have to stop and celebrate, like getting the MLB licensing and being carried in 3 MLB stadiums. That is something that I never could have imagined, but through the effort of our team, we've accomplished that. Hopefully more to come in the future. But on top of that, as we've posted on Instagram in the past, we're in the Baseball Hall of Fame as well in Cooperstown. That came about because we got an inquiry on our site. I realized it was the director of the shop, and I drove out there and we talked and we got a deal done. So when you go to the MLB Hall of Fame, you can buy our product there. I already talked about the patent as being a really great moment just because of the process and the validity of it. Like this is your idea. You came up with this. But most importantly, the fact that we have 4 employees. So we have managed to find a way to grow this thing to support 4 people. So when I, sell our business and our products and I talk to customers, I hope that they realize that they're part of a process that supports 4 people, which is just phenomenal to me and just a huge accomplishment for us.
It's one of the proudest things as a business owner.
Absolutely.
You looking at your team and realizing the number of people that what you've created is supporting. It's supporting their livelihood. It's supporting their families. It's supporting their it's providing them with the ability for them to live their life how they want to live their life, right? And so that's always kind of a cool moment as a business owner to see the impact of what you've built. The impact is beyond you, and it's beyond your product, and it's beyond the profit that you're taking out of the business at the end of the day. It really is. Hopefully, if you're doing things the right way, it's really enhancing the lives of other people.
Absolutely. And it's just the proudest thing that I can point to because, Caitlin, our salesperson, is into the card industry. That was her entry in. So it's cool to give somebody an opportunity to do what they enjoy while connecting with people in the hobby in the sales and marketing type role.
Yeah.
My wife is another one of the employees, but she might not be as into cards, but we're working on that through my kids and Pokemon and all that.
But it's that makes it a good family thing as well, right? Like, you've supported your family with this business.
Yep.
And not only have you directly, just brought in revenue, but you've actually employed another family member. You've employed your wife in the business as well. And so both of your incomes are tied to the business. And the fact that the business has been able to grow to help support both of your incomes is a pretty special thing.
Yep. And the care and the urgency that she has is second to none.
Yeah.
When you get a package from us, it's through her, and it's another proud moment.
Now, I do commend you and your wife for working so well in that capacity. I do not necessarily suggest to everybody out there watching that they employ their spouse in their business. I have a wonderful relationship with my wife and respect her tremendously. She's an extremely successful entrepreneur. But I think she's probably best concentrating on her own ventures, and I'm probably best concentrating in my own ventures, because I imagine that if the two of us were too intricately involved in the same venture, that there would be a little bit of a power struggle that might emerge. It probably best for our dynamic to avoid that. But you've made it work really well. For some people, it works really well. It obviously all just kind of depends on the dynamics.
Yes, we've learned a lot how to not manipulate, but work together and get stuff done. And it's been a huge supporting factor for me. And I don't think it's possible without that support, as I said earlier. So yeah, I could see how it could go wrong for some people, but our dynamic has been phenomenal.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to talk about the MLB licensing. You mentioned that as one of your big accomplishments. Getting licensing is always something that I think a lot of business owners that maybe start a product company desire.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to put actual licenses on products and everything like that. It's very coveted to get licensing. It's also difficult. It's not, whatever you're trying to get licensing for, sports leagues or whatever it may be, entertainment brands or whatever you're trying to get a license, on your product for. It's not super easy because they're very picky about who they work with. They don't want, low quality products to emerge carrying their logos. So they get very involved in approval processes and all that type of thing. What has that experience been like?
Yeah. So the initial license is probably the easy part. Now, obviously that comes with a contract and minimum commitments and all of that you need to deal with, but it's a lengthy process. It's an ongoing process. So as you said, they're very strict about what you can and cannot do and how you can and cannot market it and all of that. So you need to navigate and learn how to do that. But they've been amazing to work with. They're very scrutinizing of the logos. We want to introduce more designs as we go. Hopefully get into the city series that has some different designs there. But just having that connection to a fan, they have a Ellie De La Cruz card that they want to show off, but you can do it in a cheap stand. Or hey, I'm a Reds fan. Let's really show that off in an appropriate way.
Yeah,
but
the license stands look really cool.
Yeah,
they're neat. We actually, so here inside Cards HQ, we actually currently carry the stands for every MLB team. We carry your full line of stand-up display stands. As everyone might guess, the Braves ones are by far selling the best. We're selling a lot of the Braves stands. Of course, we're 1 mile from the Braves Stadium here in Atlanta.
Right.
So it makes sense that those are doing the best for us. The other stands have sold a lot more slowly, but obviously 98% of the people who walk in the door here are Braves fans, not necessarily fans of the Minnesota Twins or the Chicago White Sox or the Seattle Mariners. Now, we wanted to stock all of those stands as well because we just launched our website, cardshq.com, recently in the last couple of weeks. That launched, and we're going to start really trying to push those stands, associate them with cards. If somebody buys a card of Ken Griffey Jr., then we're going to suggest to them a Seattle Mariners stand at checkout.
Right.
And so we wanted to have the full line here because we figured, we may not sell much of those other teams in store. It may mainly be Braves stands in store, but having the full lineup enables us to do a lot of interesting things with the online selling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean this store is a destination, so it makes sense that you'd want to have that when you have people coming literally from Seattle to check it out. So
and we have had that, and we have had that. And we've sold a few of those to those types of people that have come in from all over the nation.
That's great, and the Baseball Hall of Fame is doing the same thing, where they want to have something for everybody. Obviously, that's the mecca of baseball, so they can move that. I was surprised to hear, though. Here's a little tidbit: the athletics bats that they sell are their best sellers. So there's a huge disparate demand that you probably won't forecast that you need to be ready for. So if you have everything that anybody could possibly want, then they're going to be something and they're going to leave with a smile on their face with a athletics card and an athletics stand.
Specifically the athletics? Is this because they're moving to Vegas?
No, it's because the bats were green.
Interesting.
It caught people's eye and it was low on the thing. So that's something that I'm sure you're going through, which is product placement and all of that, and what makes sense from a volume perspective. But as a company, that's another facet that we're learning. We're learning it from you guys as well. How does our product play in a shop? How is it presented? How can we improve? Yeah. So I'm speaking with all of our customers, with you guys being at the top of that list. How can we be better? Yeah,
well, and that's one thing that I felt like needed to be improved, right? So when we got all of the card stands in our shop, you shipped us all the card stands, and they were in plastic bags, and we put them all out on display. We got every MLB team, but what we noticed was that the way that they were hanging in these plastic bags, the logo of the team wasn't always turned towards you. Sometimes it was turned down. And honestly, it looked a little bit messy when you had all of these different teams and all of these different plastic bags kind of hanging up next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd said to you, Dan, I think this needs to be better. I think that if we want to get stand-up displays in many other card shops around the country, we have to have a little bit of a better display of some type. And you took that idea and prototyped out creating a box with a clear plastic front to the box so you could see inside the box and actually see the product, but that the product will be sitting in the box the right direction, facing out with the logo being prominent. And the box honestly just has a higher quality feel to it. It feels like a more premium product when it is sitting in the box instead of hanging in a plastic bag. So that's a big shift that's now taking place. I know you're just right now in the process of sourcing the boxes and all that type of thing, but having it's helpful to have that type of feedback, right? And to make adjustments based on it.
Right. We would not have gotten or may not have gotten that feedback. So you're also doomed to fail if you don't take that feedback because, a bag, and we have that figured out. It works when we're shipping direct to customers and they're ripping it and using it. But when it's in this environment, it needs a different approach. So that feedback is instrumental. We're going to solve that problem and it's going to look great. It's just one more step.
Any other challenges that you have kind of faced that come to mind over the last year or two that have been things that you had to learn how to overcome in order to get stand-up displays to where it is today?
That's a great question. Scaling has been the biggest concern. Finding ways to schedule the team, getting people in the office when you need them and working on the right things. Sometimes we're too efficient and you're kind of looking around saying, what do we do? So finding ways to better implement people and focus them on things that might not be the fire drill, but are going to lead to long-term, process improvement. So it's looking at a process or something that somebody's doing and finding ways to make it more efficient and easier for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that can involve training people and getting people oriented in the right direction. That can also involve creating operational efficiencies within the business itself in other ways, whether it's by implementing technology or by changing manufacturing processes. And we already talked about the conversion from 3D printing to actual product manufacturing, which was a huge efficiency driver. And what we're doing now, which will be a further efficiency driver, is we are we're changing the way the manufacturing is kind of taking place, so that the products come more complete. It takes some of the assembly burden off of your plate that is there today. Mm-hmm. And it's going to make, and in some cases, the products are going to come pre-packaged, where right now none of our products come pre-packaged. So I know you're constantly looking for ways, not just on how do I optimize staff, but how do I optimize the manufacturing and product production process to enable me to get more orders out the door more quickly with less work.
Right. And my initial feel for that was to staff up internally because we're going to be getting these products in raw form. We need to make them sellable. Whereas we've shifted that through relationships and learning from manufacturers. Manufacturers don't just make your product. They will also package it. They will also potentially distribute it. So it's new learning that allows you to efficiently improve your operations.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Marketing. Sources of growth. I know you've been doing a lot of online social ads, that type of thing. That's been effective. The website has been busy. We've seen quite an uptick in orders through the website, standupdisplays.co.
Right.
Obviously, you still get the big bulk orders from companies like we mentioned already, like eBay and PWCC, that are ordering large lots of things. And now you're trying to break more into retail here in Cards HQ, in the MLB stores, everything like that. Where do you see the biggest growth opportunities for stand-up displays in the months ahead?
There's a lot of activity in events right now. Everybody, I'm sure, has seen the release of the Fanatics show that's going to be at the Javits Center. I'm a strong believer that a strong marketing campaign by the larger brands in our hobby is going to yield longer lasting relationships in the hobby for those collectors. Our product as a swag or merchandise item is a huge opportunity for our customers, those companies, to get their brand out there in a meaningful hobby related way. As that type of promotion continues, I view that as a huge opportunity for us. Secondarily, there's a ton of card shops out there that don't even know about our product. They don't know if their customers want it or not. I think we're a proven case that there's a huge demand out there for this. I think that utilizing the existing shop network in the country will connect our product to more customers that are going to be happy to use it and enjoy their cards. So I think that's another huge, I don't want to say blind spot, but a huge untapped potential for us.
Yeah, I agree. And it's hard to sell to individual card shops because they do get hit up with a lot of different people with a lot of different products that are trying to break through and sell to them. And so if you can team up with a distributor or some other way of getting into the card shops through a mechanism that they're already buying through, that's obviously a big plus as well. We haven't done a lot of that yet, but I know that's also kind of something on our radar that we want to try to improve the distribution channels and have channels for people to be able to order the stands through maybe distributors or whomever that they already have relationships with.
Yep. The buzzword is friction. We're trying to reduce the friction for everybody in the revenue stream. And you can come up with a great product, you can come up with a great idea, but unless you connect it to the right market, it's doomed to fail.
Yeah.
And reducing that friction for the traditional sellers in the hobby, like a card shop might just want to order from a distributor for their top loaders and sleeves, and then just that's the end of it. But if we call them, they might just say, I'm good. I don't want to write a separate check, whatever it may be. But if it's coming from a distributor that they are, accustomed to using and it's one box that shows up, that's something that I think brands in the hobby could strive to capitalize on.
Yeah, for sure. And a whole nother area, a little bit of an untapped potential for us perhaps is TCG.
Correct.
We obviously by the very nature of you and I being associated and this being, me being sports card investor, we have infiltrated the sports card market and have helped, we promoted the products of the sports card market and everything of that nature. We've got relationship with some sports card shops. But the TCG side remains a little bit of a open opportunity for us. We haven't done a ton there. And yet there are unbelievably as many or more TCG cards being graded every single month as there are all of the major sports combined on the sports card side, right?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, they're, Pokemon collectors, massive audience, big opportunity. They need stands as well to display their Pokemon cards.
They need them more. I think the artistic nature of those cards really lends itself well to being displayed. You're absolutely right. And one of the improvements that we're going to have is multiple colors. It's a natural fit to put a Charizard in a red stand. And that level of appeal is something that we're going to be introducing here soon with our new supplier. We're also teaming up with some Pokemon and TCG specific influencers to introduce the product to that realm as well. But like you said earlier in a previous post, where are these slabs going? I think they're going to collectors, and I think that people want to enjoy them. So we're going to show them how to enjoy it differently.
Yeah, that it's a big expansion opportunity. It'd be nice if we could get official licensing from Pokemon to be able to use the Pokemon logo on stands, maybe to be able to use some of the different characters on stands. I mean, that'd be amazing if you had a Charizard stand that was actually using Charizard artwork. I don't know that's going to happen.
Right.
It's from what I understand, it's a lot more difficult to get licensing for Pokemon and their IP
Correct.
than it is to get licensing from MLB, for example. And that was tough. That was not easy as it was. Like that took time and relationships and all that kind of stuff. And we were able to get MLB licensing, but will we ever get Pokemon licensing? I don't know.
Yeah.
It would be great if we could. I mean, I think it's something we should definitely push and pursue. But even without it, then if you can't get it, then you got to think about like, well, what else is going to appeal to that audience other than just having a Pokemon logo on something?
That's
and
right.
as you said, colors, right? Colors. TCG is colorful. There's certain colors that are naturally associated with TCG, yellow being an obvious one, but there's other colors as well. You see a lot of, purple and pink and green, colors like that within TCG that you really don't see nearly as much of on the sports card side. So right. I think there's ways to do stands with those colors and make, have them appeal to that TCG collector crowd.
Yeah, there's certainly overlap, Braves in red and blue, there's a play there, but it's really just when you buy cards, you're doing it very mindfully. Like there's intent behind it. The same could be said for the display, like we're looking at here. There's intent behind this. I want to give you a new way or a new thought on how to add to that and enjoy it. It's very meaningful, very purposeful.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, in this display behind us here, some beautiful stand-up display stands. We've got a couple of top stands back there, and you've done work with tops before. And so it's kind of cool to see the top stands and the Mike Trout cards on those top stands. And then you've got a stand-up displays branded stand with our Sports Card Collecting and Investing for Dummies book on it. Did you know that your stands hold not just cards, but they also do a nice job of holding books as well?
CDs, albums, books. I actually can't wait. Mine's waiting for me at home, so I can't wait to learn about sports card collecting and investing when I get back.
There you go.
Next time I'm in town, I'll bring it by and have the whole team sign it.
There you go. There you go. Dan, what are you collecting these days?
So growing up, I was a hockey collector, avid hockey collector. I used to read the back of the cards to learn about the stats and all of that. But these days, there's been a lot of talk about pumping and dumping of F1 cards in the hobby. I, for one, am very happy that I found out about F1 through cards, because that's been my passion the last year and a half. I started watching the first race because of cards, and it's just been captivating to me since. So cool. I actually bought a couple here. I bought a Lewis Hamilton refractor and a Max Verstappen refractor right off your shelf. That's going to go right in my collection. So
there you go. So if there is in fact a lot of pumping and dumping of F1, the dumping you're here for.
I'm here for the dumping.
You're here to pick it up when the dumping occurs.
And it's a connection to something that I truthfully enjoy. Yeah. So I went to a race last year, hoping to go again this year, all because of cards. I had no idea what F1 was prior to that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, and I have no doubts that all those F1 cards you are picking up are going to be displayed very nicely in your home and in your office on stand-up displays.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. Awesome. Well, Dan, it was great to catch up with you today. I think the audience probably appreciated hearing some of your entrepreneurial advice and wisdom as well. And maybe some of them are on their own journey out there.
I'm sure they are.
And if they are, then I'm sure this was definitely an insightful episode for them.
Awesome. Thank you, Geoff. Good luck to everybody out there on their own journey.
There you go. And for those of you watching, we appreciate you getting to this point in the episode. Make sure that you subscribe to the Geoff Wilson Show on YouTube. It's its own channel on YouTube. Also, make sure you subscribe on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts so you can listen to the full-length episodes of the Geoff Wilson Show on the go in podcast form. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you soon with our next episode. Take care.